Number 15. The Techno Jump. In 2012, a ride at a Texas Carnival made headlines after it threw a 3-year-old child off while going at top speeds. A mother was with her son and daughter on a ride called the Techno Jump when she suddenly had second thoughts and changed her mind. For some reason, she still decided to leave her small children on the ride by themselves. Whilst the ride was in motion, her daughter freed herself from the lap bar and safety belt and went flying into the air. She landed on the platform of the ride in front of everybody. Yes, it was caught on tape. Aside from minor cuts and a concussion, the small child managed to survive. No charges were filed. Even though the carnival is guilty of starting the ride with 2 kids all by themselves, the mother also acted with negligence by slipping away at the last second. Therefore, no one can be legally blamed. The carnival claims that the child was attempting to get to her mother, but this isn't the first incident they've had with the Techno Jump. 1 year before, in 2011, a woman said her 6-year-old was almost thrown from the same ride after the safety latch came undone. Number 14. The Greeley Stampede. The Greeley Stampede is a famous annual 4th of July carnival that's held in Colorado. This year, it nearly became the gravesite for a little 2-year-old girl named Jaslyn Montalongo. She was on a ride that was, as her mother puts it, just little cars that go in a circle. From this description, you'd never expect such an innocent ride would end up almost crushing someone to death. While other passengers were busy getting strapped in, Jaslyn did what most kids do and began to test her restraints. She quickly figured out that she could fully stand up even with her seatbelt on. When the ride started, she jerked forward and fell under the car. Then it slowly began to trudge over her. Her older brothers watched the whole thing unfold. One of them later described to news reporters how he saw his sister's head push into the metal platform as the wheels went over her back, her left arm, and her legs. A second car would have slowly finished the job had a bystander not jumped in and pulled Jaslyn from harm's way. She was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, her body covered in tire marks. Doctors expect her to recover without any permanent damage. In the meanwhile, however, Jaslyn's mother wonders if the staff failed to tighten her child's seatbelt enough, or if it just needed to be replaced. Either way, the real reason why this happened most likely won't reach the public anytime soon. Carnival Americana, the agency responsible for running the Greeley Stampede, has since agreed to pay all of Jaslyn's medical bills as long as she didn't sue. Perhaps this out-of-court arrangement is why the exact name of the ride has not been released. Whatever the ride's name was, the Montalongo family is sure never to stand in line for it ever again. Number 13. The Zipper. In August of 2013, a 28-year-old woman was with her 8-year-old daughter at the Cornish Fair in New Hampshire when they decided to get on the Zipper. The Zipper is equipped with cages that hold 2 people each as they somersault in a continuous circle. It's kind of like if the baskets on the Ferris wheel could spin all the way around. Anyway, the ride itself went smoothly, but once it was over, getting off was another story entirely. As people were being unloaded from the cages one by one, the Zipper jerked forward suddenly, causing both the mother and son to fall out from 10 feet above. They landed on the ride operator, and all 3 of them were injured badly enough to require hospital treatment. Although there is currently an ongoing investigation to figure out exactly what happened, this is far from the only incident involving the Zipper model. In May of this year, 2 13-year-olds were at the Wonder Show in Winnipeg, Canada, when the Zipper caught their eye. One of the boys, Jevin Philipchuk, said the operator started the ride before he could securely get inside. His friend, Quaishon Jordan Arthur, was still on the ground at the time when the ride started. As Jevin's cage began to swing high into the air, Quaishon was struck in the back of the head by one of the other cages as it was coming down. Fortunately, he only had a minor concussion. Meanwhile, if Jevon hadn't held on to the sides of his own cage, he says that he could have fallen about 20 feet. As if these two incidents weren't enough, in 2006, two 14-year-old girls in Hinckley, Minnesota fell from 25 feet after a zipper cage door came open. One of them broke her elbow. This time, a carnival worker admitted that he may have forgotten to lock it, but then again, he may have. So many people have died from faulty zipper cage doors that the federal government had to order an official warning to the public advising them against riding it. This was in the 1970s, yet the zipper ride still continues to pop up all around the world. Number 12. The Super Shot. That's the name of a carnival ride at the Frederick County Fairgrounds in Virginia. It's designed to drop 12 passengers straight down from 120 feet in the air at nearly 50 miles per hour. What it's not supposed to do, however, is drive people straight into the ground. Unfortunately, in July of this year, that's exactly what happened to one unlucky person. While most carnival accidents involve a victim being thrown from the ride, in this instance, the ride came along with her. As the 47-year-old female thrill-seeker plummeted towards the earth, the Super Shot's entire seat became dislodged, with her still strapped inside. A devastating 40-feet drop pulverized the unnamed woman's leg, lower back, and both her ankles. An investigation found that there were absolutely no design flaws with the ride itself. From an engineering standpoint, it was safe as can be. The malfunction occurred after a company called ARM Incorporated brought the Super Shot to the fairgrounds and then installed it improperly. This incident shows that no matter how many times a ride is inspected, something can still go wrong, and often does. A lawsuit is currently pending. Number 11. Bubba Blackwell. Bubba Blackwell was a fearless motorcycle daredevil looking to take on the biggest jumps in world history. He worshipped the legendary stuntman Evel Knievel and even rode the same Harley-Davidson XR750. Just looking the same as his idol, however, was not good enough for him. He wanted to surpass the man himself. It seemed as though Bubba had the talent and ability to do so. In 1998, Bubba jumped 20 cars, breaking Evel Knievel's record by one. In 1999, he jumped over 14 buses to break another one of Knievel's records. In 2001, he was looking to break a third world record, but he wound up breaking himself instead. It was 4th of July at the Del Mar Fair in San Diego, California. This time, Bubba was looking to jump a total of 22 cars. He hit the giant blue ramp and went flying into the air, but he didn't get enough air to clear the jump. This was a horse track, and the softest soil wouldn't let his bike reach top speeds. Instead, 30,000 onlookers screamed in horror as Bubba's bike hit one of the cars and sent him somersaulting out of control. He landed in a crumpled heap, one arm outstretched. Everyone was sure that Bubba was dead at this point, but somehow paramedics were able to find a pulse. He was airlifted to the nearest hospital and rushed into emergency care. Overall, the failed stunt broke his ribs, punctured his lungs, ruptured his spleen, broke his back in 6 places, and gave him a serious head injury that put him in a coma. It also completely shattered his pelvis like a spider web, as he later put it. Miraculously, Bubba was able to recover. Whereas most people would be happy just to be able to walk again, he went on to beat all of Evel Knievel's records. In fact, his last jump before his retirement was in 2015. Still, this painful reminder of the worst day of his career, and probably his life, is forever on tape. Number 10. The Dragon Wagon. This popular kids' roller coaster can be found throughout the United States. On the Dragon Wagon, children ride a green dragon over a series of gentle drops that are so small it seems almost impossible to get injured. Yet when Stephanie Carver took her 10-year-old daughter and 2 sons, 7 and 5, to Smokey's Greater Shows in Waterville, Maine, she nearly lost her family. On June 12, 2015, Stephanie heard a loud bang and saw that 2 cars had smashed into each other.
Oh no! Okay. That's not cool. Alright, babe, you're probably gonna have to go get him.
Children were crying, screaming, and bleeding. Blood was everywhere, she said. One boy was treated for facial injuries, and many others were hospitalized as well. The event was caught on tape. The ride malfunctioned when the device that was responsible for holding the 2 cars came apart, causing the cars to slam against each other in the middle of a sharp drop. Police caught the ride operator, Arthur Gillette, as he was trying to fix the Dragon Wagon after the incident. He was charged with falsifying physical evidence after attempting to make it look like nothing was wrong. For this crime, he was fined $1,000 and received no jail time. Number 9. The 3-story slide. On July 17th, a 26-year-old firefighter named Jeff White was volunteering at the annual South Amboy Carnival in New Jersey. He and his firefighter friends were helping to clean up the property as the carnival wrapped up for another successful year. They decided to take a break and take turns going down a huge slide for fun. It had been raining all day and the slide was soaked by the time they were on it in the evening. The slide was so slippery, in fact, that when Jeff White went down, he picked up enough speed to go airborne. He landed on his head and suffered a critical brain injury. Doctors were able to keep him alive in the local hospital for 2 days until he sadly passed. Number 8. The Candy Cane Sleigh Ride. This carnival ride at Santa's Village in Illinois was a delightful tradition for the Matronza family. Jean Matronza first started the tradition as a reward after her oldest grandchild finished her first school year. At the end of every school year ever since, Jean Matronza first started the tradition as a reward after her oldest grandchild finished their first school year. At the end of every school year ever since, Jean would take her grandchildren to the Candy Cane Sleigh Ride without fail. The carnival event was little more than a slow-paced horse and carriage ride around a decorated track, but it still amused them to no end. In June of 1993, Jean was 67 years old and was ready to continue the tradition for another year. She took her 12-year-old granddaughter and 17-year-old grandson with her, and together they got on their beloved ride for one last time. The ride was off to a normal start, but soon it began to pick up speed. The horses were spooked and started lapping the track at a dangerous clip. Nobody is sure what made the horses go wild that day, but the most likely reason, according to one employee, is a bee. Whatever the reason, the cart tipped over and Jean was thrown from the Candy Cane Sleigh Ride. Her grandchildren survived with only minor injuries, but Jean did not pull through. This accident goes to show that even the most primitive carnival technologies can still result in death and injury. Number 7. The Vortex. In October of 2013, the North Carolina State Fair was engulfed in terror after 5 people were harmed by the Vortex, a ride that spins people in a circle while holding them upside down. As carnival goers were getting off the ride, it suddenly started up again without warning, jerking the remaining riders high into the air. The victims, who were as young as 14 and as old as 39, dropped from about 30 feet above. Nothing was there to cushion them from the full force of the fall. When paramedics responded, they found 5 people passed out amongst the screaming crowd. 3 of them slowly regained consciousness, but 2 of them weren't waking up. The ride operator, Timothy Tutero, fell to his knees and wept. Timothy was charged with multiple counts of assault with a deadly weapon, and his bail was set at $250,000. His bail was set so high because investigators found that the electronic system had not been installed correctly, and they had even suspected that he might have caused the accident on purpose. As Timothy sat in jail for 22 days, one could only imagine his panic and guilt as he learned of what happened to the victims and thought about what could happen to him. One of those victims was Anthony Gorham, 30 years old at that time. The accident put him in a coma for over 3 months. When Anthony woke up, doctors told him of the serious injuries inflicted to his brain, skull, and neck. The vortex would leave him blind in one eye and suffering from seizures. He would never be able to find employment or otherwise support himself again. Timothy eventually pled guilty to 3 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. Foul play was ruled out, so he was fined and put on probation. The owner of the carnival, however, was given 30 days in jail and was fined $22,500. Number 6. King's Crown. This May, a carnival ride in Nebraska severely injured an 11-year-old girl named Elizabeth Cooksey, who goes by the nickname of Lulu. Lulu was riding the King's Crown, which is basically like the classic teacups ride, but inside of a gigantic crown instead, when it all went down. "Where's my pretty hair?" Lulu was asking witnesses while lying on the ground in shock.
Be advised, this could be a small child that was on a ride that malfunctioned, struck the child in the head. You have possibly a large skull fracture. They're attempting to control the bleed at this time. Conscious, but not alert. Breathing's very labored.
She had been completely scalped from her eyebrows up and was now bleeding profusely. Her hair had gotten caught in the King's Crown, yanking her hard against the wall as the ride continued to turn, pulling harder and harder. More of her hair got sucked into the machine's spinning mechanism. Witnesses say it took at least 5 minutes for her flesh to be completely ripped off from the top of her head. Worst of all, the girl's own mother had to turn off the carnival ride before any more damage could be done. The carnival operator was running off somewhere to get help. Security cameras caught it all on tape. Lulu herself describes her head as being, quote, crushed. She was blind at first, but regained vision in both eyes in the following weeks after. Sadly, she has double vision in the left eye that might never fully go away, along with some terrible memories of that day at the festival. Number 5. The Yo-Yo. In May of 2008, the Calaveras County Fair left 5 children with permanent brain damage thanks to the yo-yo ride. The style of this carnival ride is very common. So common, you probably have ridden something like it before. You sit in a safety harness that is attached to a chain and basically swing around in a circle until it ends. It's actually a lot of fun as a kid. That is, until the ride collapses and you get permanently injured. A witness to the Calaveras County Fair incident describes how the children were, quote, spinning in the air and then it just dropped. Going on to add how, quote, little kids were just laying there screaming. The exact number of children hurt has not been made clear, but the grisly scene was nonetheless horrible and disturbing. Of all the victims on that day, the Milligan family was arguably the most heavily affected. All 5 of their children were on the yo-yo, and all 5 had traumatic brain injuries, according to a lawsuit filed by Robert and Dina Milligan. By December of 2008, the operators of the Calaveras County Fair and the manufacturers of the yo-yo settled out of court for $3.3 million. Number 4. The Bouncy Castle. An inflatable castle recently became the site of death at an Easter fair in Harlow, England. In March of this year, 7-year-old Summer Grant was playing in a bouncy castle, but a sudden gust of wind picked up the entire structure and carried it high in the air. She was blown clear across the park at a speed of up to 25 miles per hour. Terrified onlookers watched in disbelief as she disappeared from sight. At that point, nothing could be done. In total, Summer Grant was carried almost 500 feet away. That's well over a football field in length. Paramedics found her broken little body at the bottom of a hill. She survived a while longer, but eventually died in the hospital. 2 fairground operators were arrested for manslaughter and gross negligence. A full police investigation continues. Number 3. The Sizzler. This El Paso, Texas attraction recently killed a 16-year-old girl named Samantha Aguilar. The teenager was enjoying herself at the St. Thomas Aquinas Church Carnival in April of this year when she and 2 other friends decided to get on the Sizzler. The Sizzler has long arms that spin clockwise while its seats spin in even smaller circles at the same time. Samantha and her friends were the only ones on the ride when disaster struck. The seatbelt snapped while the 3 girls were spinning at full force. 2 of them were flung from the ride then and there, but the 3rd friend managed to stay in the seat by keeping a death grip on the handlebars until the ride finally stopped. One of the teens landed without being hurt too badly, but poor Samantha was not as lucky. The young girl, who had just ended her junior year at the top 10% of her class, splattered into a metal barricade. Officials couldn't tell if the fatal malfunction was due to faulty equipment or an incompetent staff, but a spokesperson for the National Association of Amusement Ride Safety said that out of the 200 Sizzler rides operating in the United States, at least 12 of them have caused accidents since 1991. Most of these accidents were seatbelt related. Number 2. Swiss Sky Ride. On October the 21st of 1979, the Texas State Fair had one of the most infamous carnival mishaps in history. 1 person died and over 70 more were injured when one of the gondolas started to sway in the 90-per-hour winds. It then became jammed as it passed over a support post. 3 other gondolas slammed into it from behind. 2 of them fell 85 feet into the crowd below, injuring 16 people and killing 1. His name was Fred Millard. His wife and 2 daughters were injured as well, but survived. The first gondola smashed through a tent and straight on the asphalt. It narrowly missed thousands of fairgoers by only a few feet. The second gondola landed on the tent as well, but did not go through the tent like the first one. 3 million people were at the fair in total. In 1981, a woman named Cindy Holden settled out of court with the Texas State Fair and the ride's manufacturer for $3.8 million. She had survived the fall, but had been paralyzed from the waist down. In 2005, other accident victims received nearly $10 million in a court settlement. As part of these settlements, the ride's manufacturers have promised to install wind monitors to prevent this from ever happening again. Number 1. The Enterprise. There's really not a lot of information about this accident in Estonia that occurred in 2007. Police are unsure what caused the Enterprise Ferris wheel to suddenly catch on fire. 41 people suffered from burns and smoke inhalation. Well, that was a very dark list indeed. And if you're interested in scary things, why don't you hop over to my channel and check out some of the stories that I do. They might not be true or real, but they are certainly scary. Check out the first link in the description if you're interested in that. And I hope you have a nice day.